Welcome everybody to another episode of the SRU podcast with me and my guy Will Royal. How you doing today, Will?
This was a long day at work today, not gonna lie, but got my tea and let's talk some college football.
Yeah, let's talk some college football. There is a new AP poll that came out Sunday, and Will has a lot to talk about when it comes up to that. Will?
Yeah, kind of cut and dry. Top six are the same. TCU now up to number seven. They're one of the six undefeated teams left now. Along with them, it's the other top five of Clemson, Ohio State, Michigan, Georgia, and still a bad taste in my mouth, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Ole Miss, they were the number seven seed for TCU. They fell to 15 after they lost to LSU. In the rare instance of seeing a tie in the top 25, and that is USC and Wake Forest sitting at number 10. Two teams are now in, both SEC teams of LSU at 18, South Carolina at 25. The two teams that fell out, one a current SEC team, one a future SEC team, Texas and Mississippi State. I think we're about a week or two out now from the playoff bowl. So do you think it's going to be similar now that we're looking ahead?
If it's next week, it should look similar, unless because Tennessee plays Kentucky, and that could be a trap game for them. Also, I don't know what other big games are coming because this week is not as many big games that we've been spoiled with for the past few weeks. But there is some nice games coming in. I feel like there might be some more trap games like there was last week. But other than that, I'm not very surprised. Let's talk about your guys down there in South Beach with Miami. What's going on with that situation, man?
Oh, it's a mess. I'll tell you that right now. Like we were kind of talking about Miami at the start of the season. I was kind of, I'll admit I was hyping them up because they had a new coach and this new culture coming in, but they're garbage. They got blown out by Duke, like a Duke team that we thought was going to suck, but they're now one win away from bowl game. Meanwhile, Miami is sitting at 3-4. So I don't think. I mean, credit to where credit's due. Chris Willis' his first year, and he's bringing in this new system, his new recruits. We kind of saw that with Sark last year when he came to Texas his first year. And so I think, give it time. Miami will kind of come back up, but I think now it's going to be like they're just going to fight for 500.
Yeah. I don't know. Just there was a little disrespect on the Duke end where the players put up the U and just broke it on their leg. It's very as someone who's known Miami to be a great program and win a lot of national championships or be like top contenders, it's very crazy seeing them being so bad like they are now.
Yeah.
You wouldn't really expect that coming from that program, but it's yeah, I guess it's the times we're in, the 2020s. Let's go to this first game. It's very controversial with the number five team coming in from last week. Clemson winning 27-21 against number 14, Syracuse. Garrett Schrader with the 18 for 26, 167 yards, one touchdown, and one interceptions. To DJ Ungalale, his 13-20 for 21, 138 yards, zero touchdowns, and two interceptions. There was no passing touchdowns for Clemson. And also, DJ did get subbed out for Cade Klubnik, looking to be the future of the Clemson program once DJ leaves. But I also want to give props to my guy, Will Shipley. He's been lighting up this year. 27 carries, 172 yards, and two touchdowns. He basically put the Clemson's offense on his back, scoring two touchdowns. But this game was very controversial. A lot of people said that Clemson got a lot of help from the refs. Me watching it, it probably did happen, but I wouldn't really like focus on that game as much. But this game, it's not really a surprise. I feel like the past few years, Clemson and Syracuse have been great games. Will, how did you feel about this game?
Yeah, I watched most of the second half of this game. Back when Syracuse was up big at halftime. I think it was like 21-10 at halftime. And DJ was struggling. They bring in Klubnik. Yeah, I'm just looking at stats right now. Take a guess at what DJ's total QBR was throughout this game.
This game, probably 30s.
Lower.
Lower? Jesus Christ.
According to ESPN, he had a QBR of 16.
Oh my gosh.
And
That's
this is a Heisman contender we're talking about right here.
I never said he was a Heisman contender.
I'm not saying you are, but like there are people out there that are saying that.
Yeah.
I wonder who one of those could be.
Big game boomer. Hey,
Um,
you already know my Heisman contender for the ACC.
yeah, we know.
Yeah, and he had a great game that I saw his stats for. I don't know 100% what they were. I can pull them up, but um DJ, he's been on and off for well, he hadn't really been off. This is probably the worst game he's had this season that I can think of. But for my guy Sam Hartman, he had another 5 touchdown game with a 78.7 QBR, 300 yards too, and it would have win against Boston College. Wake Forest with Sam Hartman is looking like that team in the ACC. I don't think they're going to win an ACC championship or anything, but hey, they're looking good. Let's go to this next game, Will.
Yeah, so up next, a game that where we saw Texas implode per usual. 11th ranked Oklahoma State was it? Yeah, this game was in Stillwater. They welcomed Texas in, and they came back to win 41-38. Spencer Sanders had a fairly good game, 34 for 57, almost 400 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Quinn Ewers struggled, 19 for 49, 319 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Bijan Robinson put on a pretty good game as well. 24 carries for 140 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think the Texas hype train has kind of died down, and in all honesty, and like I remember talking about this before, how much of an underrated program Oklahoma State is, and they are the second best team in the what's it called in the Big 12, and they haven't played TCU yet, have they? Or is that their one
Yeah,
loss?
yeah, they lost to TCU last week.
Yeah. So realistically, like this is the second best team in the Big 12, and I think this could be a good matchup to see in the Big 12 championship.
Yeah. Speaking of
Um,
TCU, well, let me get my thoughts on this game. Texas really disappointed us. They were up most of the game, probably the first half or something like that.
a good chunk of it at least.
Yeah, and I was watching bits of this game. I stopped watching it because I'm like, hey, Texas got this in the bag. All they have to do is play defense and score. They can kick field goals if they want to. Just play some decent defense and they win this. Come back and see Oklahoma won 41-34. I'm like, bro, what is happening? Then when we're making the notes for this podcast, I see Quinn Ewers had 3 interceptions. That's just a no-go for a big prospect like Quinn Ewers. And everyone had him. He's like, hey, this is the guy could possibly and still can possibly win the Heisman next year. Honestly, for other than Quinn Ewers' 3 interceptions, Bijan Robinson has shown that he's top 5 best running backs in the nation. I honestly, I would have him at around like 3. I think Gibbs and what's that other guy? Chase Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's one more that they have in the Heisman contentions. I don't remember his name, but yeah, they are probably over Bijan Robinson, just stats wise. But other than that, this game was pretty disappointing for a team for me, who picked Texas to win this game. But let's go to this next game because we were just talking about TCU. They are the Big 12 favorites at the moment and possibly can make the playoffs once it all said and done. I have them winning out for the rest of the year. I think they've played probably their hardest 2 games back to back, and they came down. It looks like TCU's the second half team. Will Max Duggins had 17 for 26, 280 yards with 3 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. I'm pretty sure Max Duggan has around 1 interception, and I'm pretty sure it was one of the first 2 games that they played. against Will Howard's 13 for 20, 225, 2 touchdowns and an interception. TCU's defense is relentless. They've shown that they are bend but don't break defense, and they could look like they could probably be up there and fight for one of those playoff spots, and could even win a game. Who knows? But I feel like their offense has to get going earlier if they want to be in the playoffs and win a game in the playoffs. But TCU, they're looking like they're the real deal this year. Will, how do you feel?
Yeah, no, it's kind of easy to see that, but it is the Big 12. It's very unpredictable. I'm not going to say TCU is going to win out, but I wouldn't be surprised if TCU dropped one more game between now and the end of the season. I still think they're going to finish the season like possibly top 15 and making a New Year's Six bowl. Do I think they're going to make the playoffs? I need a little bit more convincing to do so, but that goes without saying. Like I think TCU's done a really good job, and they were going up against the Kansas State team that was without Adrian Martinez, which got injured after a couple of plays. But who's to say what could have happened? But Kendra Miller still had 2 touchdowns, which is showing me that it's then TCU is not just relying on Max Seven. They have a really good run game, and it could take them far.
Yeah, they do still have Texas and Texas Tech coming up in the next 3 weeks. So those could be 2 trap games if it all said and done. And they still also have their rival in Baylor coming the second and last week of the season. Will take us off for this next game.
Yeah, so this was a game that we had a difference on, and unfortunately, I was wrong about, very much wrong about. And that was Penn State absolutely demolishing Minnesota 45-17. Sean Clifford, who I feel like has been at TCU forever, put up 23 for 31, 295 yards and 4 touchdowns on top of an interception. And the surprise for me was there was no Tanner Morgan at quarterback for Minnesota. This was Ethan Kalamet. I'm going to butcher his name. Kaliakmanis. Yeah. Ethan Kaliakmanis, who went 9 for 22, 175 yards, and a touchdown and an interception. So I think the real saving grace in Minnesota was Muhammad Ibrahim, who put up 102 yards and a touchdown on 30 carries, who, I mean, is basically like kind of what's holding Minnesota's deep offense together because they don't really have much of a receiving core.
Yeah.
At least not since Rashad Bateman left a couple years ago. But Tanner Morgan out, I think, hurt them a lot more than necessary. Then again, or we could just say, Penn State's actually good, which, James Franklin, we've talked about before, just kind of been struggling even after this new mega extension he got. But I think the real test for Penn State is going to come up next week against Ohio State, and because Brandon Wiggins only won once in 8 years as Penn State head coach, 1 game, 1 win versus Ohio State. So I think this is going to be like a much needed test to see if Penn State's valid or if they're kind of just like floating around.
What this game showed me is that Michigan is real deal. Like after the way that they beat Penn State last week, well, the week before last, it's not Penn State. I just feel like Michigan is just really that good of a team, and I feel like this playoff situation is going to be hard to pick, and we could see 2 1-win teams making in the playoffs. Don't you think, Will?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be too surprised depending on how well the loser of Ohio State, Michigan, the loser of Georgia, Tennessee does, because only one of them is going to go on to their respective conference championships.
Yeah.
And that at least in the next 2 weeks, it's going to be. I saw this tweet as well. It's going to be basically the SEC East Championship, Georgia, Tennessee, at the 2:30 game, and then at night the SEC West Championship, LSU versus Bama, all on the same day. That's going to be an exciting day of college football. I can't wait to talk about that. Yeah. But in the meantime, you want to take us into our next game? Speaking of,
yeah, let's go to this next game. Me and you both got correct. LSU upsetting number 7 Ole Miss 45-20. And I told you, Will, Jackson Dart is just not that guy. Coming from the same high school as everyone's beloved quarterback for the Jets. What's his name? I'm sorry, it's pretty late. Dang, why can't I
Zach
get his
Wilson.
name? Yeah, Zach Wilson. They came from the same high school. Pretty sure Jackson Dart came after Zach Wilson left, or he was his backup. He went 19 for 34 with 284 yards and one interceptions. No touchdowns coming from Jackson Dart, which is shows how good he is in the Ole Miss offense. I have no idea why he's so bad in their offense. I feel like it would be a quarterback's dream to be in the Lane Kiffin offense. And Jaden Daniels, I always want to call him Jaden McDaniels, but
Yeah.
he went 21 for 28 with 248 yards in the air and two touchdowns, 121 yards rushing with three touchdowns. He's had him a career game right there. And maybe I don't know if he has any more eligibility left to come back next year. But if he does, he could be a Heisman favorite coming in next year with a second year of Brian Kelly's system. Um, LSU, it's just hard to beat LSU in Death Valley in a evening game or an afternoon game. And what we called this a trap game, and guess what happened? They trapped Ole Miss and took the game away from them. Will.
Yeah. I would say probably the more surprising thing was seeing LSU fans rush the field.
Yeah.
You don't really see that in Baton Rouge, and it cost them like $250,000 from the SEC. But I almost said the same thing you did. Jaden Daniels, I think, has been one of the better transfers we've seen in college football, apart from the bias of Jahmyr Gibbs. Thanks, Wyatt. Yeah, because he put up 250 yards in the air and over 100 yards on the ground with 5 total touchdowns. Like, I think, and yes, LSU is now back on the top 25. They're back up to 18. I think they play. Did they play this week or are they off?
Let me check for you.
Because the week after that is Alabama. And I think that's like the real test of what we're gonna see. Because the winner of that game is most likely going to go on to win this that represent the SUS in Atlanta.
Yeah, they don't play
They're
this week. Yeah, this weekend.
Okay. So I think realistically, Tennessee, or not Tennessee, LSU is kind of in a good position. I think a loss to Bama will still keep them in the top 25 because it's still Alabama and they're still, doing their thing. But this was a good win for LSU and kind of exposing Ole Miss. I think, Ole Miss has A&M this week. I think they'll win that. We'll talk about the downfall of A&M at the end of this episode. But I think Ole Miss isn't too far off. I still think they're, going to be a top 25 team for the rest of the season. I think they'll drop maybe one, probably at most two more games, finish 9-3, possibly 8-4. But this was an LSU team that needed a win, and I think this is a good way to get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Speaking of the SEC West, my beloved Bama had the pleasure of hosting Mississippi State. Second straight year, Mississippi State has played Alabama after a loss. And if you're a fan of defenses, this game was the game for you because nothing happened the second half. It ended up being a 30-6 win for Alabama. And basically, the defense turned on immediately. And I hate Bill O'Brien. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Defensively, I think we kind of got our stuff together. We did hold Mississippi State to a shutout until the last 3 seconds of the game. But Will Rogers still threw for 230 yards on almost 60 attempts, at least. Bryce did his thing, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs, touchdown. Bama has their bye week with LSU and Ole Miss back-to-back on the road. I think after coming off of the travesty of losing Tennessee last week, I think Bama needed this to kind of build up their confidence again. And most importantly, we got to see Eli Ricks for the first time this season, and it shows he is a starting cornerback that Bama needed. and so much better than what we had beforehand. I'm not saying now blaming our players, but Eli Ricks is miles ahead. Got to see Tyler Harrell come off from injury, and he made a couple plays. I'm excited to see what he goes through later this season. But I think Alabama starting to learn from their mistakes. Take this time to look over film for LSU and Ole Miss, and please, for the love of God, one of these Big Ten schools take Bill O'Brien. Please, I'm begging you.
I didn't watch this game at all because I knew what was going to happen. Will
Yeah.
Rogers throwing a lot of balls. Didn't he have a few interceptions?
No, he didn't have any interceptions.
Which is very surprising. I feel like
Yeah,
he
you
a
think
little
on 60
careless.
attempts, one of them would be an interception.
Yeah, I feel like he gets a little careless sometimes with the ball, but I feel like that comes with the air raid offense. You're going to throw some interceptions, so it's good to see that he didn't. But yeah, me and Jack said this game would be a blowout. It was a blowout, but not as big as I thought it would be. I thought it would be. They did. I'm pretty sure they covered the spread.
It was 21 they covered.
Yeah, they covered. So other than that, I saw there was a heartfelt moment between two brothers, from each team. Will, can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, it was the Preston brothers. One of them plays defense at Mississippi State. One of them's a receiver at Alabama. And there was a moment they got to share a field at the same time. So
Yeah,
it's those heartfelt moments.
yeah, yeah. We love to see that. But let's go into the game of the week. Oregon, number 10, played number 9 UCLA for what we could see as the Pac-12 championship when it comes down to it. Um, Oregon won 45-30 at home. DTR for UCLA went 27 for 39, 262 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception with 38 rushing yards. With Bo Nix, aka Bo Pigs, went 22 for 28, 283 yards, 5 touchdowns in the air, and 51 rushing yards. Bo Nix had a career win in a career game, going for 5 touchdowns. Watching some of this game, I felt like it would be a closer game all the way through, and it would go for whoever had the ball last, but it wasn't. Oregon did take control of this game and didn't lose control. UCLA does have USC the second last game of the season, but they do have 3 easier opponents before that. So we could see who's going to be playing for the Pac-12 South and for representing that division when it comes to USC game on. Here, let me go back to that.
It's the second to
November,
last week of the season, I
yeah,
believe.
November 19th. So I would love to see this rematch, and I would also love to see Oregon play USC. Let me see when they play. I actually don't think they play against each other this year, but hey, we could get this rematch, and it would be. I feel like UCLA will come with a chip on its shoulder and could actually win that game.
Yeah. Fun little factoid: Bo Nix has now surpassed his touchdown total at this point in the season more than any time at Auburn. So he's doing something right up there.
Or
DTR,
it's just the Pac-12 defense and the Pac-12 system that's giving them a boost. The SEC is the best conference in the nation, so we
yeah.
have harder defenses.
But DTR still had a good game. Zach Charbonnet still had a good game. I think that's what his name is.
Yeah, it's
Zach Charbonnet, yeah. So I'm not counting UCLA over the rest of the season unless because they still have to play USC. So other than that, we do want to close this out with laughing at Texas A&M.
yeah. Texas A&M. We saw that they having some problems. What Stephen A. would say, but what would he say?
Stay off the weed. Yeah, we found out that 3 players, Bryce will list them off in a second, Uh,
Let me see if I can even find them.
yeah, they were caught smoking weed before their loss to South Carolina this weekend. So now they're suspended, and A&M is below 500. So, anyone who has $95 million they can give to A&M to buy out Jimbo?
Um, if Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk is a Texas A&M alum, that's what I would say go to. But other than that, Texas A&M is not looking good. I feel like Jimbo keeps his job just because his contract is so fat,
Yeah,
and they're gonna wait until that contract gets a little smaller or Jimbo starts winning, and whichever one comes first. That's what I'm gonna say. But other than that, I don't have anything else to say about Texas A&M. Wish we would have beat them. We should have. We know, we made a mistake, a huge mistake that turned the entire game around. But it is what it is.
yeah.
But we'll glad to do another pod with you, man.
It's always great coming on here.
Yeah.
We'll
So
come back.
everyone,
We'll come back later this week for a pick'ems, special guests.
I don't think we figured out who our special guest is. Well, we might have a special guest, Jacob Elkins. He might be preoccupied watching the Thursday night football game and doing the podcast. So yeah. But thank y'all guys for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on the post notification, and see y'all later this week. Bye.
Useless.